Welcome back to the Dice is a Mimic podcast. I'm Tristan. Joining me is Bean. Say hi, Bean. Oh, that's not... Okay, well, that's... Sure, there it is. Bean, also known as Noccora, from Adventures of Aramora, we're joined with no one else, just us two this time.
Yeah, I'm not here.
He is not here. No one else is here. Don't listen to the man. Things got a little wacky on the recording end of stuff, and the recordings didn't go so well after the last episode, and now we're here. So what we did is we went on adventures, but everyone went to a level 5, and level 5 is kind of peeling into archetypes. And I wanted to take everyone on their own one-on-ones with me, and today we're going to talk about Noccora's, since recording it didn't go so well. But we're going to talk about it.
We're going to talk
about it. So yeah, so you started off your day in your house for this episode that passed. Byron was there, you have Rex and Jerry, and you actually didn't join your friends to go on an adventure. This time you got a message from Ram, rescuing animals of mistreatment, which we touched on in the first-ish episode, which guided you to the whole bugbear situation. But this time you were visited by a cat, in which you had lovingly invited it in which it produced a living mouse from its mouth, in which the mouse then produced a scroll to you. Do you recall what that scroll contained?
It said, "Hey yo, BBG. There's a group of dude guys who are taking animals from the city and turning them into drug mules. Go fix it."
Yeah. Penguin, your leader of Ram, who no one really knows what he looks like or who that is. Normally, drugs isn't technically part of your job, but the fact that the animals are involved is the problem. Mm-hmm. But they informed you of such, yes. And then they were informing you that, hey, it's at an old abandoned quarry that used to be in the city, and you're going to be joined by another Ram member, which you would know by
Z.
Upon arriving to the location, you met Z, who is in simple terms, a Fey-touched elf. Who...
Fey touched my elf.
In which you exchanged some pleasantries, in which he was actually surprised to be accompanied by you. You kind of have a name within Ram as the kind of the more... well-known member.
I am that bitch.
You are that bitch. Mm-hmm. And he agreed.
He was like, "Damn, you are that bitch." And I was like, "Damn, you right."
And as you, of course, talked to him, you concluded what the mission really was. And
I came to two conclusions.
What are the two conclusions?
What the mission was. He was fucking hot. Those are the two conclusions.
Two conclusions. Solved. Done. The one with the whole mission. You talked with him and decided that the leader, known as Dogdust, is leading a bunch of, I believe it was like 11 people in the factory right now, where they are opening up animals, putting drugs in them, and then having the animals shipped, essentially, packages.
I don't take very kindly to people cutting up on animals without a fucking degree.
Now, with some more communication, the idea was to do this stealthily, and Noccora is a little more chaotic, and Noccora offered, "Why not just kill everyone?" In which Z informed you that
he was kind of a pacifist.
Correct.
He doesn't like hurting people.
So the solution to the problem was knock people out.
Yeah. Except
for that one guy that you did shoot across the room with a bow and decapitate him with a natural 20 to your arrow shot.
Basically, he found Z and he was going to alert everyone that Z was there. And I was like, "My baby boy." And I fucking exploded his head.
I didn't explode the head, you just separated the head.
I separated the head.
Some miraculous shooting of arrows. You killed one, stopped the rest by, I almost said sedating them, but making them fall unconscious. And you fought Dogdust, who you also didn't kill. You also kept alive and tied up. Not a happy camper. Some important things that obviously during the event was there was one guy there that didn't want to be there. He was working there, but as soon as he found out that you guys were there taking people out, he immediately dropped his weapon and was like, "I don't want to be part of this. I don't even want to be here. I don't want to be here. I'm in danger." Which you kind of let him go. We'll get back to that in just a second, but
Yes, we
Yeah.
did. We did let him go.
And then the other thing is when you did show up, Dogdust did not believe that you were the feds necessarily, but believed that you were part of another gang called the Short Gang, which is a real canonical gang of Aramora.
Short gang represent.
In which you probably said, I wish I was part of that.
Well, he said, no, you're part of a rival gang. And I was like, what gang? I'm like 4'2". And he's like, the Short Gang. And I'm like, I want to be part of that.
You're part of Ram and Whistle's adventuring guild, but now...
Ram, Whistle, Short Gang.
Short Gang. We gotta find the Short Gang team for you. I mean, once you exchanged some blows, you basically tied him up, locked up everyone, knocked out everyone, except for that one guy. Like I said, I'll circle back. You let that one guy stay awake and alive, and he said that he didn't really want to be part of this, in which you were convinced of this, and instead of tying him up with everyone else and, like, basically getting him in trouble, you slapped a sticky note on his forehead that said innocent. And Z promised him that he would speak for him in the court of law to help him.
Yes.
Under the name Thaddeus Z. Y'all kind of left the drugs there with the gang, and then you released the animals that weren't cut open. You got the other animals. Do you recall how you got out?
I think we changed into some common clothes, and then we came back into town. We took them to the hospital, or the animal hospital.
You took them back to the safe house.
To the safe house. And
in which you met none other than Ram's animal healer, Sally the Salamander.
Sally the Salamander took care of them.
Yep.
And I asked him if he wanted to go on a date.
Who originally wasn't going to until you offered it to him.
Yes.
And you two shared a lobster. Not a lobster pierogi. An actual lobster.
It was lobster pierogies.
Yes, but originally lobster pierogies were not on the menu. And you said you can make anything at that restaurant. So you promised him lobster because he likes lobster.
Yes.
And that's kind of where it ended for you. Any other notable things you remember?
I remember he has a son. He's got a child.
He does have a son.
Um,
He's about 5 years old.
Yes, he had a wife before me.
Yes, you asked if he was married, and he said, no, I was, though.
Mm-hmm. He had a wife before me. She fucking died. Probably died. I think that's pretty much it. I remember when I came into the place, he was fire.
He was in
red.
So he is a Eldarin who was at the time a summer. But you don't see that until much later.
That he actually changes.
Yes.
So he was basically summer that whole time. Because he saw me and he was like, damn, she kind of fine though. So yeah, that's about it.
So that was your adventures of getting into 5th level. Welcome back to the Dice is a Mimic podcast. Welcome back to Adventures of Aramora with the whole table of just one, actually. It's just Devin. Hi, Devin.
Hi.
Who plays Grévil Lockhart.
Who's that?
A guy from somewhere.
Never met him. Don't know.
Maybe from another kingdom. Who knows?
Who knows? I don't know that guy.
Who knows? Someone that's tormented.
Maybe.
Maybe. Who has a new friend in his mind is the best way to put it in this case.
He's not a very talkative friend.
No, he's not very talkative at all. But he promised you greatness.
Yeah. In exchange to pushing my body to the utmost limit it could go.
Yeah, it's fine. Don't look at that too closely. Anyway, you're probably curious, where's Byron? Where's Noccora? We recorded some one-on-one sessions as everyone went into 5th level, and everyone took different paths, and I couldn't help but want to make it so that there's a reason for these paths. People don't just suddenly become warlocks or clerics or whatever. There has to be a reason for it. And in this case, we went on an adventure on following Grévil, who turned into a warlock.
Level 1 warlock?
Right now, we're just going to go over some things that I remember and took some notes on, and we'll discuss stuff.
Yeah.
And see what you remember.
As a drunk man, what can I remember?
Yeah. So originally, I remember when you first started, you took the scythe from the laboratory that you just came. That was your last mission.
Yeah.
Which granted you some sort of power that really no one knows too much about.
It basically sucked the soul out of me. Not actually my soul. Sucked the life out of me.
Yes.
And then I gained control over the scythe, as
Correct.
far as I know.
But
told me.
you were told to take it to the Aramorian Wizards.
Yeah.
The great Aramorian Wizards.
Yeah.
They were wholly responsible to build the entire city. Even though it's been hundreds of years, they've still been around. And of course, before that, you looked at yourself and you thought, man, I need a new look. And you definitely...
it was time to change.
Yeah. You did change. You dappered yourself up. You cleaned yourself up. You got a nice hair did.
Yeah, hair done, beard done.
New pants, new clothes.
New clothes that aren't dirty.
Yeah, everything was new, essentially. And then you decided to go see the Aramorian Wizards.
Yeah, of course. Priorities.
Yeah. There you met one of the Aramorian Wizards, which didn't really have a name. I never gave you a name. But it was a Duergar, which is a deep dwarf, is the best way to describe it. It's essentially he was just a stereotypical kind of dwarf, other than like a few things that he was blind in one eye, and he carried around a staff that was purely made of tiny dragons.
I vaguely remember that now.
Yeah. And they were just crawling around the staff and on his arm, which you were not fond of at all.
No.
You were definitely uncomfortable. As you gave him the scythe, he did some magical touching on it, and he entered your mindscape, if you recall.
Yep.
And he met the scythe, the sentience that is the scythe.
Who we've called the noble, mostly.
Yeah, we called the noble because he took that position as a noble next to you on the
throne.
On the throne. But the wizard didn't really seem too concerned by this.
He's pretty nonchalant about the whole thing.
He essentially just said that, hey, this thing's a sentient scythe. It definitely belonged to someone else. Usually when a being creates a weapon that has sentience, it's kind of dedicated to serving that being. Considering you're not the being, you must have killed the being that owns this scythe, or somehow obtained it since then, and it draws a liking to you. Which Grévil didn't quite understand what all that meant. But then I think you actually figured out a little bit more talking with him.
I tried to explain to him about the mission, but I physically couldn't, so I just told him what I could tell him.
I was just about to say that. The one thing is that because of the contract you made with WAG, you were unable to communicate about what happened in the laboratory.
So all that I could communicate was that I heard that it was owned by a Soul Reaper. Didn't no clue what that is or what that means.
Correct, yes. And which he responded with, he fought one before and almost lost. Mm-hmm. And now you just have the sentient sword. And it's a new sentient sword, so it wasn't sentient to begin with.
Yeah.
Until recently, which was also the odd part about it.
Yeah.
But other than that, he didn't seem too concerned. He was just like, yeah, it's a sentient sword. It gives you power, it seems like.
Yeah, I asked if it was illegal to own or use or anything. He's like, nah, man, it's all good.
Yeah, he's like, it's all good. It's just be careful with it. Because usually where these come from, there's a higher being in power, which promptly was answered as soon as you left
the door, because the receptionist was frozen in time.
Yeah, frozen in time.
And
everything was frozen
instead of ascending the staircase I came down from, I started going down the staircase that I was supposed to be ascending.
And you didn't just ascend into another room, you ascended into your childhood room.
Which was not supposed to be there.
No, not at all. Which was not supposed to be there, and more importantly, who else was not supposed to be there, was essentially like...
A maid.
A maid, but her name was Lady Smith.
Yep.
And she loved you.
Yeah.
Like a grandson almost level of love.
Like a caretaker.
Yeah, like a caretaker, yep. I mean, what did Grévil feel at that time? I just remember you just kind of...
He was very confused at first. And she insisted that he sit down because he's so... he's big now. He looks so different. He's grown up. Because the last time I saw her I was way younger. And Grévil was really uncomfortable with the whole thing because he was like, I don't want anything to do with my past. Mm-hmm. So he looked out the window in hopes of finding some kind of answer out the window.
Which, in this case, was hell.
Yeah,
you
saw
were
hell.
Literally in hell. Yeah. And this facade of this character, as you started to poke more and more into it, you fed into it at first, like, oh, let's entertain.
I gave it a little bit.
Yeah, you entertained a little bit, but then it started saying things that were just out of pocket, out of time.
I also remembered that she was also dead.
Yes, and you also know that she said that you became king, which is impossible.
Yeah,
because she died before your father did.
Yeah.
So definitely trying its best to create a facade.
To which I was like, all right, cut the bullshit. What are you? And she still wouldn't tell me. He was like, all right, what if I give you a different guy?
Yeah, and of course, the thing being the thing created a squire instead. Maybe that's...
Yeah, I blinked and instead of her, it was a squire entering the room.
Yep. again, once again, the Grévil Lockhart was like, yeah, I'm not doing this anymore.
Yeah, I was basically like, what are you?
Yeah,
are
what
you
do you
devil?
want?
Just talk to me. I'm willing to talk to a devil right now.
Right.
Just talk to me.
And at that point, I think it kind of changed the way everything was.
Yeah.
It introduced you into its, like, living room, is the best way to put it.
His abode.
Yeah, and during that time, you actually got to see a piece of what the real thing looked like before it turned into an appearance for you.
Yeah.
Was just basically a dapper gentleman that was just as clean cut as you were, and started to kind of elaborate into like an idea of what power is, and we can easily just. Your mind is shattered, your history is shattered, but we can take it back. We can fix it. But you have to serve me in that regard.
And I immediately said yes.
And before he could even utter what the job was or how to do things,
even what the contract was, what anything was.
Yeah.
I just said, yeah, okay.
Which was the best part, because immediately he dropped the whole, like, I'm an evil being. I have power. It was like, you just want to sign it? You don't want to do anything? You don't want to talk about it? It just immediately was like, oh, yeah.
But he seemed really bummed out, so I let him go out on his spiel.
It's
still,
true,
I still let him
did.
explain the contract that I had already signed.
Yes, it's true. You did let him explain, and for those viewers, it was the first
Shadow.
off, the thing is called the Shadow, also known as the Lost Shadow, and it explains itself as a myriad of a bunch of souls that are, quote, corrupted, which are souls that go into the wrong plane of existence once they die and they leave the body, or are basically souls released from bodies that are in anger and anguish, and then it kind of like sucks them up and becomes a mob of darkened, corrupt souls, as known as the Lost Shadow. And it functions essentially like demons and devils do when they create patron gods. It's the same thing, but in this case it's a little different. It doesn't follow the same rules. And the simple task that Grévil was given was
To reap souls.
to reap souls. But not just like any souls. I want you to reap souls of like the bad.
Yeah.
Because they're better.
The mentally tortured.
Yeah, they're better.
Yeah.
They're better
Tastier.
for my they're tastier. So essentially, Grévil's tasked to do good, like without being good at the same time.
Do you remember him being very gung ho about also consuming my soul?
Yes, he was absolutely interested in yours. He says that yours was essentially tormented.
Yeah,
and it's tasty.
Yeah, he wanted me bad. He was down bad.
He's like, but I think it's better if I keep you in play in this giant chest.
Just to see what happens.
Yeah, just see what I can get from you.
Yeah.
But he did threaten you at the end of the day, which is if you turn against me, I'll just take your soul.
Yeah. This power is temporary.
Yeah.
Remember that.
Yeah. Which Grévil didn't seem too bothered by it. That's my favorite part, is that Grévil just like went, yeah, sure.
Yeah.
You got it. Sure, I'll kill people.
Yeah, he really didn't understand the gravity of the situation. He comes from a really interesting place, low on magic, low on everything. So Grévil was not prepared to deal with the devil. He kind of just went along with it and was like, yeah, this sounds great. This is a chance for me to get my shit together. This scythe is a new opportunity to fix my brain, essentially.
Yeah, which...
So he just jumped at the opportunity and said, yeah, sure, why not?
Yeah, which is... it's just an interesting thing. I mean, it's not interesting, but it's also interesting that that was the way things went so smoothly. And before he released you, he wanted to see where you were at regarding your willingness to kill someone, especially someone you knew that just recently helped you, none other than Elgin Core, which you already had a weird kind of like head-butting relationship. Not like bad, not bad, but just like...
I think he just didn't understand how stupid I was.
Yeah, and I think that's really what it was. Elgin just didn't like you because of just how oblivious you were and how unhelpful you were, and especially in the laboratory. That really is what upsetted him.
Yeah.
But he was brought into basically a Coliseum fight with Elgin Core.
Yeah, one-on-one.
A one-on-one in which Elgin technically won.
And also, Grévil drew his sword for the first time in...
That was
maybe
the big thing.
7 years.
That was the big thing. Yeah, it's for of course.
Up to this point, Grévil had never drawn his blade.
Correct. It's a Grévil's history, which goes into much later.
Yeah.
But Grévil's history hasn't pulled a sword in 7 years.
Yeah.
And even during the fight in the laboratory, even during the bugbear, it was just I
was talking, running,
away. Yeah.
and if at my very worst, I would use my shield.
Yeah, and now it's, all right, let's see what this sword does.
Yeah.
The sword promised me something, and this being promised me something. Let's make sure it actually happens.
Yeah.
In which, of course, the shadow did tell you that you would die, but at the end of the day, Elgin thought otherwise. And you were definitely defeated.
I don't think it was particularly close, but I think I held on for a lot longer than I probably should have.
You did hold on for a little while there. I remember at the end of combat, I wouldn't say the end, but near the end of the combat, neither of us were getting really good hits on one another.
Yeah, we kept missing.
It was really bad.
And, like, it was down to just missing punches on each other, basically.
Yep. And once Grévil was brought back to the material plane, is the best way to describe where you kind of disappeared off to and then came back up. You were in the city of Aramora.
And I had a new drip that I had just bought for it and it already changed on my
body.
Yeah,
it changed again.
Yeah.
But you were also granted first off, your sword, which was originally Scythe, but it took the appearance of a sword instead.
Yeah, transferred it to my sword.
Yes. And you now have Soul Reaper Sight, which allows you to see other people that are Soul Reapers that work under the shadow.
Yeah.
Which is just, Elgin Core right now, because you can kind of see him. Now, of course, you can't see him through walls and stuff, but you got the ability to see him now.
Yeah.
But other than that, you just kind of went on your day and saw Noccora in passing as you were walking back to the bar.
Yeah, I had new clothes, new power in my body that I didn't understand, and
a feeling of actually confidence again. You didn't have that. So now you feel you felt confident again to take on
a different man now.
A different man. But yeah, that was basically it.
Yeah.
Hello everyone to the Dice is a Mimic podcast. I'm Tristan, the DM for Adventures of Aramora, and joining me today is none other than a good old Byron Glenn, also known as Ivy.
That's me. I'm Byron.
Yeah. So a little difference. Usually you're used to kind of an intro here, but my players went on a level 5 mission. Everyone went to level 5, and they all went their own paths, and there's 3 different stories you get to listen to, because it was all one-on-one sessions. And everyone did their own thing. Unfortunately, during the recordings, they weren't that great. The recordings kind of flopped, there was a lot of background noise, some of the videos got corrupted. So now we're here, and we're reminiscing of what experience we had.
A lot of reminiscing here.
Tons of reminiscing.
Reminiscing is my middle name.
Yeah, so we're just sitting here and tell you the story of the adventure that level 5 Byron Glenn went to that turned Byron Glenn into a cleric.
Yeah, what an adventure it was. truly an experience.
So I'm going to do mostly talking. You add in whatever you want, and we'll just go from there.
Yeah, sounds good.
So Byron Glenn woke up the next day after experiencing the laboratory and basically getting talked down by Feyrin about you guys suck.
I felt very upset. It was a very fatherly figure moment.
Byron woke up in Noccora's home, and Noccora lovingly left behind some eggs for you.
Thank goodness.
Along with her 2, raccoons, Rex and Jerry, who were also there at the time, but you didn't see them.
It just now dawned on me, like, the only thing that any character has eaten for breakfast is eggs.
Yes, there is, only thing. Canonically speaking, there is no breakfast.
Sausage, any kind of bacon, just eggs. Just eggs.
Just eggs.
No vegetables exist.
Go to any restaurant, just eggs. They don't even know.
Pierogies? Never even heard of them.
Not even pierogies? They serve only eggs there.
Oh my god.
What's a
How
pierogi?
could we be so blind?
Yeah, you woke up and you determined that today is the day that you're going to go find Faith, because I forget the reason why you wanted to go find Faith.
There was a very logical reason where it's like, okay, we really don't do great with the whole healing thing.
Okay.
Like, none of us are really very proficient in it, even with me taking, like, that, I forget what feat it was, the healer feat.
Yeah, you can use a healing kit to actually heal rather than just, I think it was to stabilize someone. I think you can actually heal
you can actually bring them back with, like, 1 HP, I think.
Yeah.
And there was definitely, like, that yearning for something more.
Okay.
Like a higher purpose.
Okay. So usually we know Byron Glenn, all the listeners know Byron Glenn as a very logical thinker of like, hey, here's the science. So it's very interesting that you decided to take a path into a cleric, which is less science, more faith. And once again, it's very interesting that that's where you strayed from. That's what you wanted to do, just to, not only from the standpoint of like logically in game mechanic, obviously, but
as a character, that's what you chose. Like, you were like, yeah, I want to get into faith because I think I need that. Like, that was kind of how you phrased it.
Yeah, a little
You're like,
bit.
I kind of need that. And, like, as Byron, kind of need that in some sort of fashion, some sort of organization.
I do think that another really big reason that Byron specifically chose this faith that we're going to talk about in a little bit is because he is also very used to being exposed to, like, magical creatures and protecting those creatures and studying them and how important it is for us to understand and integrate with these creatures. So I think that's another driving force behind Byron's faith, is to still preserve the intellectual but also preserve the nature behind what he was actually studying.
Right. And yeah, with that, you proceeded to go look for faith back at the Aramorian Church, which in another episode you asked about finding of some sort of faith. And someone wrote up some documentation and found what they could. And in that meeting, one of the, I almost said clergy, I don't think that's the right word, one of the priests they told you that, yeah, there's only as many as we know based off the books we have, or whatever faithful people come in. This is the Aramorian Church. It was basically, if you have a faith, you can celebrate it there. But even if it's bad or good, like, anyone could go there. And this is where we started touching into how gods and goddesses work in this world. Just because of you, by the way. If you didn't go this way, no one would really know how gods and goddesses work. But the function behind god and goddesses is if there is someone that actually has real faith in a being of power, that being will continue to exist and have power. Maybe not as strong from one follower to like 100,000 followers.
Yeah.
But it will still be around.
It's almost like that you need to believe in Tinkerbell to
Correct.
make sure that
Yep.
she exists. Yeah.
Yep. So we were kind of given that aspect there, so which was really good for you to understand. But also you were given I think 3 options. I don't remember the names off the top of my head, but you were given 3 options, and one of the ones that you actually stuck to is Feyru, which is essentially the goddess believes in the natural world more than the non-natural world. So it believes in beasts, which is our animals in this universe. It's your dogs, your cats, your panthers, and disdains monstrosities, which is taking what nature is and then twisting it in a horrible mutated way. So you got like an owlbear. It's nature, yes, but it's not how it's supposed to be. And because of that, it seemed though that Byron took interest in that because Byron was already kind of interested in the nature aspect of his research.
Absolutely, yeah. That's like the big thing. That was like his job, you know, and it was very important to him at the time, and still is.
Well, yes. And I think that's and also she supports the idea of research and science behind good nature. So not necessarily like mechanics, but the understanding of nature and how it's birthed and how it's there and how it's going to evolve, both from the perspective of beasts and from the perspective of humans, elves, and other beasts. Those are also part of nature.
You know, good nature.
Good, yeah, good nature. Not the bad nature.
Not the bad nature.
And with that, they, blanking out. They got a hold of someone named Jason, who said he knew of a temple that's not too far out. It's about 4 hours out from Aramora. That is a temple of Feyru. Now, he himself has never seen it, but he's aware of it through his research.
Yeah.
And the idea behind that was that if you are a true follower or you're seeking to be a true follower, you will be able to find that temple.
Right.
He, on the other hand, did not have that faith, so he was never able to find it. However, Jason had his own faith in which he even, I wouldn't say diluted, that's not the right word, but
alluded to,
confided in you that he himself has sinned against his own religion during that time
yes,
period.
He did. Yeah.
And he said it in passing. He was just basically explaining, like, yeah, it depends on what you believe in. Right now, I'm not doing so well.
Right.
Essentially. But yeah, you spent 4 hours in a cart with him. You got there, and to look around, you fell through a tree is the best way to describe it.
Yeah.
To find the temple, you literally fell into a tree trunk.
That sounds about right.
And fell into a temple, like a stone, overgrown temple.
Like your Temple of Time from like
very
like stone built, overgrown.
Yeah.
But.
And this is where you got to experience things that unfortunately our listeners can't see, and I wish they could have, but you got to do a puzzle which essentially told the story of creation itself from the perspective of Feyru making it happen. And the puzzle was essentially a bunch of pedestals and statues needed to be holding specific items and pointing at specific statues in a specific order to open the door.
It took all of my brain power to actually like comprehend like outside of the game. Like there was so much going on, and like having like the story, like I had to like read through. Okay, so there was this, and this caused this to happen, but then there's this guy, and you gotta turn it that way, and you gotta be holding this this shield or something. And I was like, oh, it actually like was hurting my Ivy brain.
You did great. It only took you 20 minutes.
I think so.
I think it was like 20 minutes. You did great at it. Unfortunately, just listeners don't get ever to get to see it.
That was really
just trust me, it was a puzzle.
It was really cool, guys. I swear.
It was a really good puzzle in my opinion, and you did well. You struggled on what was supposed to be held, but you did figure it out. I mean, the story that was being described is essentially that Feyru was a goddess. She created a treant, gave that treant the ability with powerful magic, and then the treant made animals, beasts, and took care of the animals and beasts. And as time went on, Feyru decided that she was going to add, I'm going to say humanity, but that in general means like your elves, your humans, your
more
dwarves.
Bipedal.
Yeah. She sent like a more intellectual, which isn't entirely true because the treant was super intellectual. She sent them to the planet to basically populate and be part of nature. They were considered to be, I'm going to say ruled, but controlled over the treant who had all that power. And the treant, like anything, Feyru and the treant kind of made existence of time and how things evolve and how things die. So, the worm that comes out of the ground is eaten by a bird, the bird is then eaten by a cat, and then at the end of the day, at the end of the timeline, it's time consumes whatever. And that includes the treant.
Yeah.
So the treant passed on, and the people, the bipedal people and the beasts, basically lost their way without the treant. They couldn't follow Feyru anymore for whatever reason, and they turned against Feyru's beliefs and turned into what we know as monstrosities that now exist in this world. So, like I said, owlbears, like originally just a bear, betrayed Feyru and became an owlbear is the best way to describe it. Yeah. So it's just that kind of what's happened, and at the end of the day, the end of the story is that even though people turned against Feyru, there was still faith somewhere in the world for her. And that's why she's still kind of sticking around. It sounds silly that beasts have faith, but they do in this world. It's not like they choose to do it. It's a more mechanical thing.
Like natural instinct. Yeah. Like your hunter-gatherer versus the same category.
But that was the whole story of the birth of nature itself, the earth of this faith. But passing that puzzle, you went into another room with another puzzle, and this was just testing to make sure you knew kind of how she believed and how you want to be faithful towards her. But in this room, there was 5 statues. It was a owlbear, a boar, a panther, a wolf, and a large badger, which came to life. And the task that was given to you at the time was destroy the one that doesn't follow my faith, keep the others alive. Now, one of the biggest things about this battle, and you didn't click it right away, and forgive me if I'm wrong, but about halfway through the battle, you reread that statement, the mission statement for that room, and realized that none of the other animals can die. So the animals were attacking each other, not just you.
Yeah.
So you realized, oh crap, I have to take care of this as a problem. This is a problem. If they die, I lose this mission. And smartly, you solved it by
casting sleep
on only the monsters, only the beasts. Actually, you kept the owlbear awake, I think.
Yeah, I did. Yeah.
But a powerful move was sleep. And turning invisible, too. I think you used invisibility to save yourself there.
Yeah, for a little bit there. Just to get away from the owlbear, I was taking a little bit of a beat. Still just a level 4 wizard, so what could I do?
You're so soft.
I'm so soft. I was just a small little guy.
But yeah, you did that mission. Very easy in comparison to the other one. You kind of clocked right away which thing was kind of out there. After that, you went into the third room. Fun fact, there was supposed to be 4 in total, but we ran short for time, so I eliminated one of them.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, I don't remember what the puzzle was, but there was supposed to be a third one. But we went to the third room, where you saw a full statue of Feyru, which wasn't the exact replica of Pharaoh, but a symbol of Pharaoh, in which she holds something called the Seed of Creation in her hands, which was just a magical totem, essentially, that would, when touched by someone of faith, can then basically become fully faithful to her. Mm-hmm. But in this room that you entered with the statue, you saw that the vines have bodies. That had bodies kind of pushed into the vines and ripped apart by who the fuck knows. But
yeah, like, it was a rather like morbid scene.
Oh, it was very morbid.
For like something that's supposed to be like very, very holy.
Yeah, it was very morbid, but at the end of the day, I remember telling you that even though this is extremely morbid and terrifying, you're at peace. Like, you didn't feel fear, you didn't feel anxiety, you were completely like,
Byron not feeling anxiety, super duper weird, by the way. no idea what he would do without his anxiety.
I need that back.
I please, like, favor, we gotta talk here. Give me back my anxiety.
Give me magic, and I'll keep my anxiety.
Yep, we're good. On the same page now.
But when you were in there, when you touched that beautiful Seed of Creation, you went into... I don't really know how to describe it. You basically went into the entering the spirit world with Feyru. You get to see Feyru, which was described as a half deer, half woman, kind of like a centaur. And she had satchels of books on her back, and she had a staff that I think was just an old birch staff, I think.
I think so, yeah.
And she had literal essences of magic floating around her. Mm-hmm. Like literal blobs of powerful balls of magic.
Yeah.
Like the arcane itself. In this world, you felt nothing but like peace, and you saw a bunch of other animal spirits that shouldn't coexist with one another, like lions next to zebras. Like, it's crazy that these things were completely nonchalant.
Cats and dogs living together.
Yeah. But there, she explains her faith to you, and she also questioned you for a moment, which was the whole, you're a man of science and research, which is completely different from the people that actually seek me out. Mm-hmm. However, I see something in you potentially. I will let you be my follower, but we'll take it one step at a time to see where we go with this. I don't know if you remember that at all.
No, I do remember that.
Okay. Yeah. So you
don't piss off the god.
Yeah, you took the offer. I mean, at the end of the day, you did take the offer. Once you were given her blessing, you gained your cleric level. You came back to the wine room, in which your garb changed to a green, white, and red. I remember.
Red?
Yeah, the bottom part was red.
Oh.
And then the rest of it was a green, like the trim was green, but everything was white. And then you had literal vines growing on your staff and on, I think, your cloak that made her symbol, which we never described what the symbol looked like. You just have a symbol.
Yeah, I almost imagine it as like a deerish, like antlers, like
probably
3-4 prong antlers with some sort of like some symbol. There's something in there.
Yeah,
like underneath that.
Think nature, and if that's nature to you, that's the symbol.
Think of the Cabela's logo.
And not only were you back and you look different and you have a different piece to you and you have a different faith to you, someone else was in the room with you. Jason was in the room with you.
Oh, fuck this guy.
Because Jason followed you in as a fly.
Uh-huh.
He polymorphed into a fly, latched onto you, and you went through everything with him the whole time. He insulted you, saying you were completely powerless, insulted your goddess, in which he promptly was attacked by the vines.
And crushed.
His neck was snapped, and the vines just took him in. Completely, again, horrifying, but Byron, again, didn't have anxiety or fear at that time, so it's just like, well, there it is.
Yes, fuck that guy. And for context, for later on, Tristan did an excellent voice for Jason, where he sounded uncannily like Owen Wilson. So if there's any point in like the future where I make like any sort of reference to Owen Wilson, the person, I imagine like this whole thing is gonna be very like traumatic. So he's probably just gonna go like sleep or drink it off.
But yeah, he was basically consumed by the room, in which you were promptly thrown out of the room, not violently, but teleported out,
yeah.
And you took the cart back to Aramora, and that was literally your adventure. You became a faithful person to Feyru, you found her temple, you did her trials, and she deemed you essentially acceptable.
Worthy, with a little asterisk.
Yeah, she's a little worried about your faith. And that's the story. Anything I missed? Anything good? I don't think so.
I mean, at the very end, when we came back to the city, we talked to the other priests that were there.
Yeah.
And there was just like, yeah, we kind of knew that Jason guy was a little bit sketchy.
That is true. I forgot about that.
We kind of let him do his own thing for a little while, but then like, it's fine that he's gone. Like, thoughts and prayers, all that jazz. Give us some tithes, and we'll be on our way. We're happy.
Yeah.
Welcome to the club.
Yeah. With that, I did forget to mention that you're right. He did have a different faith than you. He said he was a sinner, but his faith when he the reason why Jason was there, which I completely neglected to format, is that Jason was there to destroy the temple and everything in it for his belief in something called chaos, which was never really given any more context. It was just
not really.
For chaos, and that was it. And when we say chaos, we're not talking about like the thing that you do, chaos, like a description word. It's a being that's called chaos. But that's it. That was the only thing that was mentioned about it. And like you said, the other followers were like, yeah, he was into some weird stuff, but like, it was bound to happen.
Eventually, like
we told him not to, but There's one line that got me that I remember, which was you came back, you looked at the cleric that was working there, and you said, "How long have you known Jason?" He goes, "A very long time." And you're like, so yeah, his neck was snapped and then consumed by vines and ripped apart. And the guy responded with the most casual, like, "Oh, that is absolutely horrific. I'm going to now pray about that and walk over here now." Like he just was like absolutely, so, oh my god,
almost it was like teetering on emotionless. Like there was like something there, but it's just so nonchalant, just like being we got his neck snapped by a bunch of vines. Oh my goddess, like
that's horrific. Anyway,
I'm gonna go pray about it. Give us some money for the church.
Yeah, he did ask for money.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Now you're part of that system.
Now I am a part of that system. Oh god, do I need to ask people for tithes? Did I just go up to Noccora and be like, "Hey, can you spare like a gold piece or two?"
I just need 2 gold pieces.
2 gold pieces for my goddess.
But yeah, that's the story of Byron Glenn becoming a cleric first and a 4th level, wizard. Jesus Christ.